Yeah.
I'm talking with Rebecca Wiasak, and it was a coincidental meeting. She's not prepared. I was driving to Canberra this morning and I called the world individual pursuit champion and said, "Are you around?" And she said yes, and so we met, and now I've put the camera on her. So completely impromptu, and please everyone be wary of background noise, because we're at the Australian Institute of Sport Visitors Centre. There's kids everywhere. You're on last day of scholarship. Is that correct? Is that what we can talk about?
I actually just checked my email on the way in because I wanted to get my facts straight. It's actually up on the 31st of October, so we've got another month, and I think that gives everyone a little bit of breathing space. Everyone was given 7-month scholarships this time around. Of course, everything works on an Olympic cycle, so the staff and the athletes all had I'm guessing an October 31st date. So I haven't heard from anybody yet. There's obviously some changes in Cycling Australia, and Gary Sutton called last week and kind of gave us a bit of an update, but really couldn't say a lot because he didn't have a lot of information. So yeah, lots of uncertainty coming up, and just still on unstructured training. So Ben, my boyfriend Ben Hill's been helping me out with some training, and structured training kind of means do what I want when I want. He'll sometimes suggest something, and if I'm not feeling up to training or my head's not in the right spot, I just won't ride. But there's been some great NRS racing on the last couple of months, and some state racing. The Goulburn Great Divide Road Race was on the weekend, so I've been able to kind of just keep ticking things along, just keeping fit, not really having a big goal in mind, and not knowing what I'm supposed to be doing along the way, not knowing if you're still funded or supported or part of the program, or if there will be a program.
This is the joy of sport in an Olympic year, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's difficult because, you know, if we did get the results, there would be probably a little bit more certainty, but with the Winning Edge model set up the way it is, it's all based on Olympic gold medals, and we came away from the Olympics without that gold, so it does mean that there's a little bit of uncertainty now for not just our squad, but all across the track and possibly the road. I imagine they'll have their reviews after the World Championships in Doha.
The last 4 years for you, you've sort of been based on the Olympic cycle. You came really close, you're part of the short squad, and then you basically have to watch from afar. Have you enjoyed that whole campaign?
The process has been fairly difficult. I really enjoyed the campaign. I had some challenging moments, especially towards the end when you're still part of it, but then not, you know, when you get removed from the Viber groups and you're used to being part of it, knowing every single thing that happens every single day, and then nothing. So that was really great that I had the support of my family and Ben during that time. We went to do some NRS races just to be distracted, and I'm able to talk about it now without getting too upset. There's still some things that will set me off, little things or little memories or little thoughts that I'm still dealing with and still struggling to come to terms with, but that'll be an ongoing thing, I think. And yeah, in terms of the review, I've not been involved in it at all. Usually after major competitions, each of the athletes, we complete like a pre and a post I guess, questionnaire to see if we were given everything that we required or if there were any issues that we needed to raise. And this time around, I wasn't involved. And as far as I know, the review's already been completed.
Is the Olympics, when you're so close and then a non-participant, is it still the buzzword that it once was?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been doing some F45, just some group training classes with some friends here in Canberra, and you're trying to push yourself, and the word Olympics used to bring out so much more in you. You used to be able to dig deeper and try harder, and if you're doing chin-ups, you just push and strive and be determined to get one more out. But now that I don't have that passion or drive, you know, that the word doesn't bring that out in me anymore. Even, you know, the Olympics is another 4 years away, so it seems silly now to be preparing for a new Olympiad. At the moment, I still would love to go to the Olympics, but with so much uncertainty, I'm not prepared to put myself in debt to do the sport. Depending on what happens in terms of funding and the program, that's, I guess, going to determine how far I can take the sport. As you said, my event's not part of the Olympic program, and that's how the Winning Edge formula is formulated. So yeah, I'd love to continue. I'd love to defend my title at the World Champs next year. That's in Hong Kong in April. So we do have a little bit of time. I can have this couple of months where it's just been unstructured, having fun, doing NRS, getting back in with the High Five Dream Team, doing some crits coming up.
You threw your arms in the air only a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I've got to do that a couple of times, which has been, it's been really nice when you have had that intense and immense disappointment of missing out on the games, to be able to use that form and come back in and get some results straight away. Sato, in our last meeting in LA, kind of suggested that I have a break, that I kind of clear my head and work out what I wanted to do next. But it seems crazy. You train so bloody hard for a race that you don't get to do, and then to just sit on the sidelines and have a break or go on a holiday seems crazy to me. So it was really nice to be able to come back to Australia to do some travelling with Ben. He did some of the NRS races, and do some racing for myself and get some really great results and really, really enjoy my cycling again.
That's what it ought to be about. I've said that people talk about the NRS being a breeding ground, and it opens up the opportunity to go on to other things, but I've often defended it, saying the NRS is the NRS. It's an opportunity for people to race and get an understanding of cycle craft, if you want a different word. When you've gone and won gold medals at the World Championships and then you're just coming back and racing in front of no crowd, it's proof that you enjoy riding your bike. That's clear, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, you should have come down to Lorne, the Amy's Otway Tour, and racing on the Saturday, the Amy's Criterium. All of the participants in the Grand Fondo, I think there's 5,500 people head down to Lorne to do that event. They all register on the Saturday afternoon, and they showcase women's cycling. We had an hour-long crit, and it's a hot dog circuit down on the Lorne foreshore, and there were thousands of people lined. It was entirely lined. I don't think anyone in the NRS, men or women, have a crowd like that. You know, the Noosa Crit might come close. So in terms of an event in Australia that showcases cycling and it's a standalone women's event, that's brilliant. So to have, you know, people like the Amy Gillett Foundation supporting an event like that, even the National Capital Tour, just having a men's and women's NRS event on. Obviously there were some issues and there wasn't prize money around that event, but each promoter is able to do their own thing independently at the moment. So that's part of another review, I guess, that's still forthcoming. Everyone's kind of waiting on that to see if there will be some consistency or if there'll be standardisation across each of the events. So I've loved racing each of them independently. They're all very different. Each of the organisers have their own excitement that they bring to each of the events, and we love racing and supporting them.
When I talk to you, there's just the general air of optimism.
I have to be. I got really upset, and there's still things even now, like you get on the verge of tears. Ian Maher had me on the podium after I won the crit solo on the Saturday, and it means so much to me to be able to race and to be having the success after, said, just working so incredibly hard for something that you didn't actually get to go and achieve. It's like you didn't get to finish something off that you started. So it's been incredibly challenging. So I guess you have to still have the air of optimism and keep looking forward and thinking that there's World Champs and there's Com Games and there's potentially another Olympics down the track. But you know, the cycling, it's such a fickle sport, and this could end tomorrow. It's always been my attitude, and Ben and I have the same views, that if for some reason we weren't able to ride our bikes, if something happened and you were injured or became unwell, that we've enjoyed what we've done every day, we've loved it, that you don't kind of finish knowing that there was more that you could have done or could have given.
You're a trained journalist, is that right?
Yeah, I studied at the University of Canberra, not far from here, sports media degree. I started a double degree with law, and once I finished the first degree, realised I could get a job straight away. I was offered a cadetship at the Canberra Times when I just did an internship there, essentially working for free for 2 weeks as an intern, and then they offered me a cadetship. So I was studying a double degree full-time and working full-time for most of my third year at uni, which was probably a little bit too much too young, and I don't know if I'll ever go back into that industry full-time. Even now, people kind of ask me through the Olympic process, the selection period, the last few months, what do you do next? Will you go back and get a job? And I think, well, I'm still on scholarship. I still have an obligation. At that time, I still had an obligation to the Australian Olympic team. I was selected as the reserve, and I did my job up until the time that they decided I wasn't needed anymore and sent me back to Australia. And even now, I'm still on scholarship. So I have an obligation to continue to train and to continue to do what's asked of me, and I've absolutely loved that. Most recently I worked for the Australian government. That was 3 years ago, prior to the last federal election, in the Department of Regional Australia, and that department no longer exists, so that was a communications role. And yeah, I've worked at multiple industries in different roles while I've been here in Canberra. I've never had a reason to leave, and I'm definitely loving my current job, and while I'm supported and still enjoying it, I definitely like to keep cycling as long as I can.
These sort of chats can go any old direction that you like, but I wonder, there is a need to have an analysis of the Olympics. It's come and it's gone, and I think it's left very little impact certainly on track cycling in Australia. I can give you an example. On the week of the Rio Olympics, when the Australian men won silver in the team pursuit, my kids said to me, "Dad, let's go out to the Dunkray Velodrome and do." And so I called and I said, "We would love to come out on the weekend when the kids aren't at school and ride track bikes. The velodrome won't be open," we were told. And you sort of think, how can there be all of this funding based on this fantastic sport which we know and love, and that the kids are getting engaged by, and then the opportunity comes where they have the motivation to go and ride, and yet cycling is so backward that you can't even use the velodrome that exists.
I guess there's a bit of a disconnect there. The velodrome in Canberra is permanently locked as well, and you need to get access to it, so I couldn't just go out and ride. I probably could make a few phone calls, and I don't have a track bike here at the moment. It's in Adelaide. So yeah, if I wanted to, I probably could, but yeah, it definitely involves a little bit of hard work, and as you found as well, that there is that disconnect between actually just getting involved in the sport and getting out and riding your bike, and then getting involved in a program more specifically, and then climbing that ladder towards high performance. So yeah.
Imagine if you could make track cycling part of a school's program, though. Of all of the cycling disciplines, it's probably that or BMX is the most accessible in reality. You can get small track bikes. You're in a controlled environment. There are some safety issues in that you go fast and you can have an accident, but it's totally feasible. And just to follow on from what I've just talked about with my children, after the London Olympics, we decided we'd go and do some diving. It's a similar environment. We went to the Olympic pool in Sydney and couldn't dive unless we had a coach. Well, we didn't know if we wanted a coach because we'd never dived.
Never tried it. Yeah.
And so it's that conundrum of Olympic sport. And for you as a two-time world champion, I wonder. I've often said that the World Championships have far more glamour in cycling than the Olympics, because it's a more packed schedule on the track. There's far more interesting events. You have the Madison and the individual pursuit and the kilo and the 500 and all of these wonderful events that are scrapped from the Olympic program. Do you have that temptation to sort of say to Rochelle, okay, I want to stay with High Five Dream Team, and I really want the third rainbow jersey in a row? Like, that's, as far as I know, that's not been achieved.
I'm not sure, actually. I guess because I'm late into the sport, I don't appreciate the history of the sport enough, and there's still things that I'm learning along the way, and Absolutely would love to go for a third rainbow jersey, defend my title again, but some of the girls are probably, without the team's pursuit being a focus potentially this season, might be going for the individual events of the World, so there may be even more competition just to make the team. And every time I've gone to the Worlds, I've been the last rider selected, and it's been because one of the other riders have been sick or injured. So I've just scraped through by the skin of my teeth to get there, and then it's been the consolation that I've been able to even race the individual pursuit because I've been the reserve for the TP for both times and not selected. So yeah, I guess, you know, luck kind of comes into it a little bit, but I mean, I often think, would I have loved to have got into track cycling a little earlier? I mean, I did athletics, so every child does a swimming carnival at school and a track, like a athletics carnival, so they're generally the sports that you get into, and I wasn't exposed to track cycling as a young person.
So how did you fall to it?
It was through, I was a triathlete, I was a runner, then I transitioned into triathlon and then took up cycling. And it was actually a camp year at the AIS. I was on the selection camp, the infamous boot camp in 2011, and I did the very first one in March 2011, then in November 2011, and missed out both times. And yeah, took the second one pretty hard, and that was when Marv told me perhaps I should try the track. And my coach at the time, John Forrest, had already put me on the track. I'd been to the state champs and got a national qualifier, and I was part of the ACT Academy of Sport, so they were able to support my transition from the road onto the track. And I tried to balance both for a while, and I guess you have to when you're not in the A team and you're not being regularly selected for World Cups and major competitions like the World Champs, and you have to kind of do both. And I've been able to complement them both really well. Had people like Rochelle Gilmore from the High Five Dream Team supporting my track ambitions. I didn't even race for the team for half the year, so it wasn't until I missed out on the Olympics that I was able to even put the High Five kit on and do the second half of the NRS season. So yeah, there's been really instrumental people in my career that have kind of kept me going and kept me motivated. So
she is a hidden gem of Australian cycling, isn't she?
Absolutely. She's supported so many female cyclists.
Yeah, because she was very headstrong as a bike rider, and she used to do even odd tactics in a bid to make world's teams. And Rochelle and I have had our moments, but if I look back over the last 20 years of influence of people who have gone from being a bike rider to being a manager and being a mover and shaker, Rochelle's one of the biggest achievers.
Absolutely.
Give us a little bit of background of your liaison with Rochelle Gilmore.
Yeah, well, Rochelle actually signed me to Wiggle for a couple of months 2 years ago, I think at the tail end of 2014, I want to say. I raced only with the one event because I had commitments to the track program. So once again, she made a commitment to me for, I think I signed a 3-month contract to do the Australian criterium season with Wiggle Honda at the time. They're Wiggle High Five now. And yeah, just for someone to have such belief in you, and I was only able to put on the Wiggle jersey once at the St Kilda Crit, and it was a week after I came back from World Cup, and I spent most of the time up the back of the race and got to the front, I think, with 2 laps to go, and didn't really contribute very much to the team, but just has such belief in you and has such passion for the sport. So to have people like that backing you, yeah, it's really special, and it does mean a lot. And she's continued to support me the last 2 years through the High Five Dream Team, and just does it selflessly. So.
She makes a public appearance once in a while, but she does a lot of work behind the scenes.
Oh, I think more than we can appreciate. She definitely does a lot. She has a role in commentating for the BBC. She's worked, I think, on the UCI Athletes Commission, sorry, maybe the Women's Commission. So yeah, she's definitely trying to achieve a lot, and actually is achieving a lot. Her athletes have achieved great success the last couple of years, and yeah, I think a lot of us wouldn't have done that without her support.
I wonder, I did an interview a little while ago when Joanna Russell was world champion, with her about her. She was talent ID. She sort of came through the school's program. And her fascinating. She's always on the periphery. She doesn't seem to get the headlines that she deserves. I think you succeeded her as world champion, or maybe Sarah Hammer was in between her and you. Have you got any? Is there someone in your realm who you look up to? And I just nominate Joanna because I'm a big fan of hers. But is there someone else like that you sort of every now and again see on the track and just think, oh, their form is perfect, or I love the way they conduct themselves, or something or other that catches you?
Yeah, not particularly. I guess there's a lot little things that you might take from different athletes, and I guess the same when I was in previous sports. There's people that you follow or you look up to, but not one particular athlete that you idolise more than any other.
No matter what happens in the competitive arena, we've got to keep on enjoying ourselves when we do ride our bike. Just before we caught up, you had a little dalliance on Zwift with technical problems. But so I've just discovered Zwift. Tell me about. I'm not trying to sell it.
I love Zwift. If Zwift would like to sign me as an ambassador, I'd absolutely love that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I think just coming from a track background, I love ergos. I love the controlled environment. It's a great social community, and Ben and I have both dabbled on Zwift the last couple of months when there has been a break in training, and I am on unstructured training. I'm still loading my files to Training Peaks, and I think there's 10 coaches and support staff in Australia that have access to my account. So I'm not sure, they're probably getting my emails every day. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing with it. I'm still loading my data, but yeah, it's been really nice to get on Strava and to go Strava hunting and jump on Zwift, and people following you, and they can see your numbers, they can see the power that you're putting out, and they can see exactly what you're doing. I'm jumping into races, but everyone's giving you kudos and ride-ons and being so incredibly supportive and inclusive, and that's been really lovely as well, to just see a totally different side of the sport that you don't see when you're in the high performance. You're just living every day in that high performance elite sport. Absolute, yeah, I guess it's a different world when you're it is a bit isolating, I guess, when everything is top secret, hush hush, and for so much of the year that there's a lot of stuff that you can't share, and people ask you questions. They want to know what your PB in a max 1RM squat is, and they want to know what you're doing, what your FTP is, or what your power, what gear I rode at Worlds. And a lot of the time I don't know, I don't ask. You just jump on your bike and you do an ergo session and you ride it. So yeah, there's sometimes I wish I did pay more attention during the last couple of years, because some of that data and those numbers would be really good for me to use or to replicate in a couple of years' time if I was doing it by myself outside of the system.
Okay, but for the Zwifters, just for the people who do understand what it feels like to be putting out X amount of watts, the pursuits that you won at the Worlds, what was your average? I mean, a lot of
they
people
take our power
this
meters off. I actually have no idea. So when I first came into track, I was pushing a pretty big gear because I came from triathlon, and I didn't do it as a junior, so I wasn't spinning, and I can't produce the power at a higher cadence. So that's something that they've had to work on with me to kind of ride a smaller gear to match what the other girls in the team are doing, as opposed to the other way around, getting them to ride a bigger gear to match what I was doing. So I think I did my first World Cup on a 107-inch gear, which is more than some of the boys do, so it's pretty big. And I think a few people at the Worlds even commented that my cadence is quite low, and I'm pushing a big gear, and I struggle to get going because you have to push that gear to get started. So yeah, I think when you're entering the Zwift races, my FTP and my power to weight means that I have to enter the A grade. And sometimes I say you can put a W next to your name so you can enter a women's category. Because I know there's results and people look at that, and we haven't really got caught up in that world yet. But I'm always like, I have to enter A grade because I could do more than 4 watts per kilo for my FTP. But Ben's like, you definitely couldn't do that at the moment because I'm pretty unfit. But yeah, I think I'm still riding on the form that I had from our pre-Olympic training camps.
So there is unfit and fit Rebecca Wiasak, because it looks like you're in tip-top shape. Like
Yeah. I think fitness and form are different things. Ben's trying to convince me that they are exactly the same thing, but because I haven't been training as much as I had been, it's totally been unstructured, and that is essentially training when I feel like it and doing exactly what I want. And that might be going out for an hour ride and downloading a couple of Strava segments, starring them, and they flashing up on my Garmin. So we'll go Strava hunting, and that's my training session. So I guess I'm still riding, and I'm still doing bits and pieces. I had 6 days off between the National Capital Tour, because that was our last NRS event, and Goulburn Great Divide last weekend. So didn't touch the bike for 6 days, because I knew that if I didn't have an actual break at some point, whether it's in March training for the Worlds, I'd definitely regret that. So it was important just to have a little period of time when I was able to just mentally have a little break. But during that week we did F45 and signed up to do some just fitness training with some friends, and that hurt a lot. Every day Ben and I couldn't walk, because yeah, fitness is really hard when you've been in such a structured, regimented routine and program, when we have strength and conditioning coaches, and you're doing such specific training, to go and do general exercise, cardio and resistance training. You know, it's only 45 minutes, but it's intense. It's really hard work. So I think even there's different types of fitness. You can be bike fit, or you can be gym fit, or you can be swim fit, and they don't necessarily transfer across. So yeah, I can still sit in a bunch, and I can still hide, and I can still punch out a 1100 watt sprint at the end of a race, and after having gone with a few attacks. But yeah, I couldn't do that all day, and I couldn't kind of do the sustained efforts that you usually would do when you're in season in hard training.
From all of that, this is an obtuse question, but it's served up pretty well.
Yeah.
Is there mentally fit as well?
Probably.